Okay, so this is Mr. Varela, and we are about to review decimals, multiplying and dividing them for the most part. So this is back in chapter 3. So we're doing a lot of review, so we're going to do that right now. We're going to be learning to multiply decimals and x to 0 in the product. So let's take a look at this first example here. Find 4 times 0.83. As you can see in the illustration here, I'll zoom in just a little bit. It shows a bar model of 0.83 and 4 groups of those, and that's what multiplication means. It's repeated addition. So 4 times 3 is 12 because you have 4 groups of 3. So 3, 3, 3, and 3 is 12. So same thing here. 4 groups of 0.83. Alright? So to multiply, you just multiply the same way, and you just need to count how many decimals there are. So to do 4 times 0.83, I'm just going to put 0.83 there, times 4, and just multiply. Yeah, so I'm just going to multiply 0.83 times 4 as if it was just 83 times 4. So 3 times 4 is going to be 12, to carry the 1. 8 times 4 is 32, plus 1 is 33. Okay, and there are 2 decimal points there, right there, there's 2, and then there's no decimal there. We didn't have to move anywhere. So I'm going to count 2 places to the left, 1, 2, and there we have it. The answer to 0.83 times 4 is 3.32. So this is for 3.32. If you estimated, that makes sense because 0.83 is almost 4. 0.83 is almost 1. And 1 times 4 is 3. So it's 3.32. That's about almost 4 as well. Maybe you're thinking now you round down. But when we're trying to estimate, we're just trying to figure out where the decimal point is going to go, really. So if you kind of made a mistake and put the decimal as 0.332, that doesn't make sense because the number just got lower. So that wouldn't work out. And if you put it as 33.2, 4 times 1 is not close to 33. So that's why we do that. Alright, let's move on. Nope. Alright, so let's take a look at this word problem right here. A batch of trail mix calls for 1.2 pounds of dry cereal. Nigella is making 5 batches of trail mix. She already has 22 pounds of cereal. How many more pounds of dry cereal does she need? So this is actually a very good problem, I think, because it's actually 2 parts. So let's worry about the first part. Let's say, okay, it calls for 1.2 pounds of dry cereal, and she's making 5 batches of trail mix. She already has 2.2 pounds. So let's first try to figure out how many pounds of dry cereal is needed for the 5 batches. Okay, so in that case, I'm going to do 1.2 times 5. Alright, so 10. So carry the 1, and that's 6. So that works out nicely. 6. So you need 6 pounds of dry cereal. Dry cereal. Alright, but that's not what it's asking for. It says how many more pounds of dry cereal does she need? Because right here, she already has 2.2 pounds. So if she has 2.2 pounds and 6 pounds are needed, you're just going to have to subtract. So 6.0 minus 2.2 there. And then, we're going to have to borrow. This is going to have to be a 5. Okay, this is 8. We're lining up the decimals. And this is 3. 3.8 pounds are needed. Alright, 3.8 pounds are needed. So here, when you're adding and subtracting, you line up the decimals. You do not need to count how many decimals there are. Alright, let's move on. So now we're going to multiply, and before we were just doing a whole number times decimal, now decimal times a decimal, and annexing zeros. So let's line this up however we want to. Doesn't really matter in this case. So I'll just say 0.067 times 1.4. Here you do not have to line up the decimals. If you do it, technically it would work if you lined it up correctly. but you would be wasting a lot of time because there would be a ton of zeros. So let's try this out. And then to find out where the decimal goes, let's count how many decimals did we actually have here. So right here, 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 decimals. So I'm going to count over here, 1, 2, 3, and there's nothing left 4. So the decimal place needs to go right here. And in the book it says to annex a 0. That's what that means. You got to put an extra 0 right there to show it. Okay, you can't just leave it blank. You just can't just put a space. So your answer should be 0.0958. And there you have it. Okay. All right. So now dividing. So we did multiplying. Now let's divide a decimal by a 1-digit or 2-digit number. So let's look at this. This looks very similar to the problem we just did a little bit ago. It shows the bar model right there. But now this is saying you have 6.8 if you divide it into 2 different spots, 2 different sections. How much is each section worth? So you need to divide. So you might be able to kind of do that in your head a little bit, but we'll just use long division in this case. So we have 6.8 divided by 2. Okay, if there's a decimal down here, that decimal goes right up to the top. And then you just divide normally. So this is going to be 3, this is 6, nothing. 8 drops down, 4. So you have no remainder. And we're dealing with decimals anyway, so there shouldn't be remainders. So this is 3.4. So each one of these is worth 3.4. Which makes sense because 3.4 plus 3.4, that gives you 6.8. Alright, so that's all you need to worry about when decimals. If there's no decimal out here, right, then it's very simple. You just move this decimal up to the top. So let's talk about what happens if there is a decimal as right there. Alright, so now we have this 1.71 divided by 0.9, and they're using the old division symbol. Pretty soon you're just going to see a slash, but either way, let's write this the correct way though. So this is 1.71 divided by 0.9, so that goes on the inside, 0.9 goes on the outside. And we can't just start dividing right now. We have to figure out where the decimal goes. You can't divide with a decimal on the outside like that. You have to change it so it's a whole number. So what I'm going to do is multiply this by 10, which is effectively moving the decimal over to the right side once. Okay, so but if I do that, I have to multiply this to the right side once as well. Okay, and the decimal goes there. The reason that happens, or the reason why that's necessary, I know you're familiar with fractions, so let's look at a fraction. Let's look at equivalent fractions, right? Let's do 2 over 5. Think of equivalent fractions as 2 over 5. So this 9, this 0.9 is kind of like the bottom number. If I multiply the bottom number by 10 or move the decimal over to the right by 1, I would get 50. I can't leave this as 2 because 2 over 50 is not equal to 2/5. You know what is equal to 2/5 is 20 over 50. So that means I multiply the top and the bottom of that fraction by 10. 20 over 50, if you reduce that, that gives you 2/5. If you divide it, that gives you 0.4, both of those. So that's why you need to move the decimal on the inside and the outside, on the dividend and the divisor. Alright, so that's where the decimal goes. Make sure you're neat about it. Sometimes I rush when I write, and I lose track of where the decimal goes. Especially for dividing decimals, you have to be neat. If you're using graph paper, make sure you're spreading it out. Maybe put a number in each box or something, just so you're not putting it just somewhere randomly in the middle. So sometimes I see 1.71 like this, you put it there, and then the dots somewhere in the middle of 2 numbers, and then it's very hard to see where it's supposed to go. So here, the decimal should go right there. Alright, then we're just dividing. Now, if you want to rewrite it, you can. This is the same thing as saying 17.1 divided by 9. Those two things are the exact same. Why can't I talk? I don't know. Yeah, I don't Anyway, so now I'm going to divide. I'll do it this way just because all the markings there, I want to make sure you're able to see it. So right here, 17 divided by 9 is just 1, and that's 9, and 17 minus 9 is going to be 8, and then drop down 1, and that's going to be 9. So our answer is going to be 1.9. Alright, that's it. No need to move anything else. Like multiplying, you move everything at the beginning. Alright, so hopefully that was helpful. Should be a review for most of you guys. And yeah, I'll see you next time.